We are so thankful, God, for the blessings, the hope that we can have, even at this stage of Earth's history. We want to continue walking on this path, and we ask that we may be faithful and diligent to our task and to our cause. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Okay, so we are back where we left off. I don't know if someone have someone has a follow-up question, or we should just continue where we were.
Actually, I have more a comment
Yeah.
from what Maka and Debbie shared, and the fact that we don't see the good women.
Mhm.
But and what I was thinking of is that uh, that's part of the methodology that we that all you see is not all there is, and
Mhm.
the fact that Revelation 17, the story or the theme of Revelation 17, or what's the story, is that of the bad woman. Okay, so the
Yeah.
focus being on her, that's why we see her and she's depicted in Revelation 17, but we don't see the good woman because it's not about her. It doesn't mean that she's not there. She's there, but we will need to go to another chapter, like chapter 12, to see that good woman. Um, uh, yeah, to have more of a story or what's going on. So, yeah, that was just my comment. Why I don't know if it's clear or if it's that, but the reason why I was thinking of that is because we had um the same thought and ideology and methodology. I don't know if you recall with Daniel 2 when we used to look at the shaft, and when I can't remember. I think it's Daniel 2 verse 30 something. um when all the metals they are broken into pieces and they become like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and we know that during summer we have wheat. To have chaff, you have wheat, but again the chaff is brought to view. It's because the story is that of the metals, it's that of the kingdoms. So
Mhm.
um yeah, and so we can see, the same type of, I don't know if it's the right word, but the same type of methodology used in Revelation 17, where because the focus is on the bad woman, so she is portrayed, but doesn't mean that there's not a good woman somewhere here. Just wanted to comment that.
That's a great addition, and a good way to say it. That the fact that we don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. Um, we of course have to be very frank and honest. Yeah, it's definitely not there if we just take the parable as it is. But that doesn't mean that there aren't ways to actually extract that symbol or better insert it and say, no, there is. Either through some maneuver in Revelation 17 itself, or simply uh, using other chapters, as you mentioned, Revelation 12. So I do recognize that, let's say, a better answer or a fuller picture that explains why there has to be a woman there, like another woman, the good one, is necessary. Totally fine. It is. But that doesn't mean that there's already ways to using simple parable methodology. Uh, if you took away the bad woman, then that place must have been taken by the good one, the good woman. Um, but we're not there yet, at least in our study. Debbie,
Ah, we're not there yet. Okay. Well, I was just going to ask a question actually.
you can.
The the woman the woman that would be there in the sixth when there's only a head, is
Hmm.
that the woman that has a good ideology and therefore the head hasn't become a beast being ridden by a woman with bad ideology? Or is that woman the woman of Revelation 12?
Okay. Well, as I
Good
said,
woman.
because yeah, please continue.
Oh, no, I just meant the woman of Revelation 12 that is a good woman.
Okay. So
But
because we,
to me, I think they're two different things, but I could be wrong for sure.
yeah. What are the two different things?
Well, the sixth, I mean, I'll say kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
the is not, where there is no beast.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there is no bad woman riding a beast.
Okay.
It's a head, just simply a political institution, a political entity that has power, but not being affected by the ideology of the woman.
Okay.
So there would be a good woman there, as Katja says. I mean, I can clearly see that, you know, just by the very inference of labeling uh, something in Revelation 17 as a bad woman, you can infer if there's a bad woman that there it would stand to reason that there would be a good woman, even though
Mm-hmm.
the theme of Revelation 17 is centering on the bad woman.
Okay.
But what the two entities are that I'm confused about now is that sixth kingdom where there's no beast, only a head. The good woman, because as you said earlier, Pedro, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a head has to have an ideology, like all of us have an ideology, a belief system, and so on. So the good woman that is influencing that head, is it the woman of Revelation 12? Because I was thinking, and Katya, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were thinking that um, we see the good woman in Revelation 12, but just because we don't see or don't have a good woman mentioned directly in Revelation 17, there still is a good woman there. Pedro, just to clarify, I equate a woman with good ideology as being different from the woman of Revelation 12.
Yeah. Fair
Am I
point.
correct in that, or they are the same?
Yeah, I cannot tell you if you are correct or not, but I do see that it is a fair point. When we say good, is it because we're saying it is the one in Revelation 12, or just good because it's not the bad woman? Uh, and I think what Kathy was bringing up is that, well, this the only other place where a good woman is mentioned would be Revelation 12. Um, so that would kind of like push us to think, well, if it is good, it's not simply a good woman, but it has to be that good woman. Uh, but I don't want to jump ahead just yet, even though I know we like this is a key point. I even want to just say, why do we need a good woman in the first place to
Yeah,
talk about this topic?
sorry to interrupt, but that's just it. I don't recognize Revelation anywhere talking about a good woman. It's just talked about a woman on a beast, a whore. I don't know why we need an antidote for a good woman. I've never understood, even in the arguments that our group has had, except for the
Perfect.
woman that how's standing on the moon and the stars and all that, but that's a different story entirely, and it's not related, I think. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents, that I don't see a good woman in this part of Revelations regarding the lamb-like beast speaking like a dragon at the end of the world.
Hmm. So, Alison, you're right. It is two different stories, uh, talking about two different things. Whether they are in a way related or not, that would depend on how we can interpret them. But that's what I would say. Like, why do we even need a story of a good woman? So I wanna try to get there. So if we are so far in the same page to what we've said, which is Revelation 17 has a symbol of a bad woman riding a beast, meaning this beast is some powerful tool in the hands of the woman. A woman being a person who has an ideology. In this case, it's a bad ideology just because of the symbols that are attached to it. However, sexist and you know, uh, like the Bible is, but we know it has to be negative. So this piece it was because it was being written by the woman. At some point, it says that it is not, but that it will be again, and that is the seventh kingdom. And we say, well, it has to be that when it is not, it's because the beast is dead, or is not working, or is asleep. However you want to see it, you don't see the beast. And the beast is this entity that is controlled by the woman. But at the same time, we cannot simply say, well, because there's no beast, there's no head. No, it is said that it is the six being a head. And this head is part of the beast, but we start seeing that we end up breaking the logic if we want to be literal about that. So then we have to say, well, it is the six, meaning each head simply represents a period of this beast. And when it says that it is, it's simply that it is because it is the entity that was told us, that was told to us, the beast with the woman, this actor that is made of two things. It's acting and it's doing things, and then it stopped. And that's when the way that I understand it, it simply means that this woman is stopped or was stopped from riding the beast. So I just put ahead because it is the heads that Revelation 17 mentions as being seven. If you allow me to change the picture, it's simply this is not correct, but uh, carry on with me. It is seven beasts, and each of them has a woman on top, the bad woman, and then one of the seven beasts simply doesn't have this woman riding it. And that's why it is said it is not. Like it is the only element that gives us a clue as to why this beast is not. That is what I want to put forward. I seen Maka, you raise your hand.
Yeah, that's I think the point I was trying to make, that there is an entity there. So a head is the same symbol as a beast. There's still a kingdom that exists. It's just not a beast being ridden by a woman. So
Exactly.
it's not that what you said was wrong. What you said is right, because they are the same symbol.
Yeah, we could say they're the same, not quite. Like that's why I like the definitions. Woman, entity with an ideology. Beast, political institution with power, meaning the animal that is so powerful. But it is a beast because it adopted the ideology of the woman. And it's been portrayed to us as, this beast is doing things. The only way the beast is doing things is because it has a woman that is bad that's on top of it. And then there's the heads. And well, I don't want to repeat myself. And then we know there has to be a head in the six, but the beast is not. So another way to put it is like, okay, the six is simply this beast not having that bad woman right in it. If we are good so far, this so far simply is giving us an interesting aspect, which is, well, the transition between the six and the seven has to do with the moment when the bad woman that was riding this beast at some point comes back. And the coming back makes it a totally different kingdom called the seventh. So the six was there. When this woman comes on top, it's no longer six, it's simply the seventh. Uh, and that's a nice, interesting way to understand the waymark of the Sunday law. Something we never said before. And now we end up with three different stories that talk about the Sunday law. 1141, Revelation 13, and then Revelation 17. This is the key point when we go to 17 and we say, okay, then if you can see clearly here, we have two elements that make up the symbol of the beast. If I understand what is the woman, and if I understand what is the beast, I might be able to say when is the point in time when the two come together. And that would be a more accurate way to say, oh, I just need to find out after I know what those symbols mean when they come together again. And I might just find what is the waymark of the Sunday law. Totally different thing from the two examples above. They don't give just that. They just say, well, this lamb turns into a dragon, or this kingdom simply conquered the glorious land. I hope you appreciate that these definitions that we are talking since the ICM, they are not giving us the symbol, sorry, the application. This is this is our own dictionary definitions that are vague enough to be correct at each of the seven dispensations. Entity with ideology. Why called entity? It was recognized, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, that the thing that is riding the beast, it's sometimes people like Alexander the Great or Nebuchadnezzar. But sometimes that thing that is riding the beast is not only one person, it is also an institution, um, like a throne. Sorry, not a throne. I want to talk about the papacy, for example. Papacy is not a throne, even though it very much looks like it. Uh, but it's a succession of popes that are the rulers of the church. And each of these popes, they hold an ideology, the ideology of this church. And this church is going to use the kings of Europe, all things that we are very familiar with. So that's when we say, well, we know a lot about the fifth kingdom, this woman being the papacy that is riding the kings, and these political powers being the beast. Um, so sometimes the woman can be a whole institution that has an ideology, but that needs a secondary institution that is political in order to accomplish its desires. But sometimes it can be simply a person. Uh, for example, when we go to the story of Babylon, which would be the first head, uh, the primary king that we know of Babylon is Nebuchadnezzar. We also know about Belshazzar when he's taken down by Cyrus. and the myths of Persians. But most of the story of Babylon that we know in Bible is with Nebuchadnezzar. And we know Nebuchadnezzar is the king seated in the throne. That symbol itself makes the throne, the emperor, that makes him the beast. Because a throne is an institution. It's not simply a literal chair. It's a whole institution that controls the whole kingdom. But at the same time, Nebuchadnezzar, for example, when he was told that his kingdom was not going to be forever, you all remember when Daniel said, well, this is the statue, you represent the head, and the other elements are simply kingdoms that are going to come after you. We can see clearly how the ideology of the person Nebuchadnezzar plays a role. This is my own way of understanding it. There might be other ways. So the first thing that he do is, no, I'm actually gonna be here forever. I'm not gonna allow other kingdoms to come. And he builds the golden statue, and not only builds it, but then enforce the worshiping of it to all of his other, governors and people he ruled over, people who had authority. He said, you come here and you worship me, basically. Worship the image, because I'm gonna be here. I'm not gonna be removed. We can see how the ideology of Nebuchadnezzar plays a role there, while at the same time he's the emperor. So this is just me, small parenthesis to explain how the woman can even be a person. This person might not be the same one seated on the throne, like the papacy wasn't, or it might be the person seated on the throne, and that still is separate. One thing is the throne, one thing is the person with a bad ideology. So if you bear with me so far, we need to find the application of who is the woman today, not in the first, second, third, fourth kingdom, fifth, sixth. I want to know today. I want to know about seventh. During the seventh kingdom, who is the bad woman? It is crucial because we want to know when the Sunday law is, and we already identified it is the moment when this woman comes back and rides the beast. So once we do that, we say, and what is, by the way, the beast itself? Because I need to know when the two come together. When do they, when one is riding the other? Uh, we have a lot of clues about what the beast is. We know it is political. It has to be powerful, and it is an institution. Then we know it is the different thrones of the previous kingdoms. How then we apply that to modern day United States? And that's how we quickly get to the point, well, it has to be something within the executive power. And then we know, well, it's this office that was created, like thrones in the past for monarchies were created. This uh, institution is very powerful within that nation. And that is what the woman wants to ride. And that's when we get, well, it has to be the office, the Oval Office, the office of the president. This is not meaning the literal chair. Something could, you could destroy the chair, and the office of the president will be placed somewhere else. It's the actual institution. And then we need to find, well, and who is so desperately trying to sit on that office to control it and use it to its own means. At some point, I think you've heard that in the movement we were trying to find out what is the woman. And at some point, because we were so fixated about the woman being ideology or related to ideology, we might have jumped to conclusions and say, well, there's an ideology that wants to ride the United States. And then we say, well, maybe it is MAGA that wants to ride the United States. I don't know if you have any thoughts about why MAGA cannot be the woman. How are we breaking methodology there? I think it's a worth point. It's worth making.
It
Because
would
I
break
also
our
thought,
definition
like,
of a political
if
institution. Mega isn't a political institution.
well, we're calling it an entity with an ideology, right? The woman. How MAGA cannot be the entity with an ideology?
I don't,
Thank you,
sorry,
Pedro. Sorry.
I don't understand how MAGA can't be a political institution. The entire group is political. That's my,
Well,
go ahead.
before we go there, let's make sure that we are assigning the correct definition. The woman is not a political institution. The woman is an entity. Remember, the woman is someone who's sitting in the very natural aspect of this parable. It is a person that is sitting upon a beast. And this person happens to have an ideology like everyone has. So, how can MAGA be or not be the entity with an ideology? Now we can, yeah. You have any thoughts, Alison or Debbie or anyone else?
Well, I think we were saying mega back at a time when we were still talking in terms of culture, replacing the word um, church,
Mm-hmm.
and we sort of were having a look at uh, MAGA being the religion,
Mm-hmm.
Trumpism, that it was sort of like a religion. Um, but that didn't really match up in a sense, because it has to be something that has the ability to, in essence, sit on a throne, to sit on the presidency, the office of the president. Uh, and Mega can't do that. Like it's abstract. It's not a person. It's not even an institution, such as
Alison
what
would
Dave
say
was saying
that
when it
it
was
is an
the.
institution. She just
Sorry,
she
say
just
that
did.
again, Pedro.
I think Alison just said that why is not an institution? I don't know if you want to follow up, Alison.
So, it was yeah, no, I'm just asking why it's not a political institution. Like when I'm watching the news, mega this, it's 100% political. It's the Oval Office, it's the rulemaking, it's the direction for the president, it's ICE, it's the whole thing is political, literally political. So my question is why is it being said that it's not a political institution?
So let's say it is a political institution. Do you think MAGA as political institution, if we go with that, it's riding, controlling the office of the president, which is what riding the beast means.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe there's a voice behind a president that's directing the power there. Like Trump is just a man. He's a person with a large ego, and he's, if you want to look at it at that figurine picture, but there is a movement that is moving the chess pieces across the board, and it's not
Mhm.
just that one person, the president. It's a group. It's his cabinet, or I'm gonna say MAGA, like, and it's more than like it's a group of people. He picked a specific amount of people to run different services, the FBI, the military, the I don't know, all of the different
Yeah, but
institutions in the US, right? So they're
and,
all running it.
and as you said, he picks them.
Yes.
And I will give a chance to Maka just before I want to say, because we all follow the news, Allison. 2025 was really the year when, I mean, Trump promised to his followers that he would disclose the Epstein files and all of that. And they desperately asked for it. So you could say MAGA uh, is really fixated on pedophiles and all of that. Uh, and so the Epstein files. Do you remember the whole year how it was about the the Epstein files and how they wanted so badly to be released?
Yes. Along with the citizens of the country, the reporters, like it wasn't only MAGA that wanted it released, it was everybody's voices coming from all the corners
Yeah.
wanting them released.
But now entertaining the idea that, well, maybe MAGA is the woman who's writing the office of the president. Was MAGA able to get the Epstein files if it was the entity writing the office of the president? So we don't need to answer that because this is rhetorical. We know MAGA is not controlling the beast. Just based on that, that's my way to see in practical terms. MAGA is not riding the beast. If it was, its most important desires, it could have accomplished. Because that's why the woman rides the beast. The beast has a lot of power, and everything that is under the power of that beast, the woman can do. That's why it sits upon it. And primarily, on the list of things, well, MAGA wants this. They want the Epstein files. You won't get it. You won't get it because you're not controlling the office of the president. The office of the president is being controlled by another entity that, in many aspects, holds an ideology quite similar in various aspects to MAGA, to MAGAs, but definitely not quite the same. Because if it was, then the Epstein files would have been released day one. And other things that MAGA do not want to do, like invading countries, such and such. So here's where I go and I say, if there's a woman, the bad woman of Revelation, and it's really riding the beast now, the United States really transformed into a different new phase. Is now the dragon, now coming to Revelation 17, and this woman is controlling the beast. It cannot be MAGA. It has to be another entity that has several of different points that agree with MAGA, but not quite all. How you see that?
Yeah, okay, you made a really good point. Then it could be little cabinet people like Stephen Miller, or Bondi, the lawyers, somewhat like it could be just little groups of people that are
Mhm.
giving voice with power.
And
Yeah.
these little voices, they may remain there, may not tomorrow. depending on the mood of the person who actually takes the decisions. I wanna give one opportunity to Maka and then Debbie.
Um, okay, so I'm gonna try to speak quickly because I think that you said it. Um, for me myself, I'm gonna just say I used to see how it made sense that MAGA would be the woman because I was only thinking I was focused on the ideology and less on the entity portion.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that being the ideology that was influencing uh, the head of states. But what you're saying is actually just throwing my head for a whole loop right now, to be honest, because I think for the first time, I'm really considering the head of state being the entity, the woman with the ideology controlling a world power, essentially, which is what all these other kingdoms have been. They've been world dominating powers. So, which entity or individual um, is driving that beast, which is speaking through its laws?
Mm-hmm.
So, am I following?
You're making a great point, and I'm gonna catch that later when we speak about the you said head of states that were controlling the six. How is it that they were good? So thank you for that point. Um, I think Debbie also wanted to say something.
Oh, Pedro, no, I was just going to affirm your comment. Very well taken. When you alluded to how some of those individuals would only be there possibly temporarily whenever um, the head of state has a wakes up on the wrong side of the bed or has a different thought or whatever. Sorry. So I was just affirming the comment that you had made, Pedro. Well
Okay,
said.
thank you. So there was a comment made, Maka just made when you were saying something that might, something that, lean you towards seeing the woman as MAGA. Uh, I think I forgot exactly what was that. You said specifically something that was
The
leaning you,
ideology?
the ideology. And you know what else? Myself included to your comment, but you know what else also? We inherited, like it is impossible. It is part of our background. It is our biases. And we have Ellen White biases. And we always have this quote that it says something like, and the people will ask for a Sunday law. I don't know if that's a direct quote, but something like that. You'll remember, I guess. Like something among the people, they are the ones that ask for it. So we reapply it. We say, yeah, 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 we changed Sabbath Sunday to something else, but it is still the people. And part of the learning that I went through, especially, the past year, is that we clearly cannot use Ellen White. Doesn't mean that it's not useful, but we cannot uh, use it in the same way that we can use a Revelation 17, because we can then, you know, make Ellen White agree, sorry, make the Revelation 17 agree with her when it should be the other way around. And not only that, we can even say, well, she could have been wrong. Or yeah, we have said, well, maybe not wrong, it was just different dispensation. So there's one thing there that made me look to MAGA stronger than, an individual, just because I saw, well, it has to be the people. But before I just explained how it cannot be MAGA. So that's one. And another thing also, another bias of mine is I tended to underestimate Trump, like if he was some kind of puppet. That's the way sometimes we refer to him, either directly or just the media does it. Uh, and we have time and time again failed to see him for what he is. He is more powerful than we think. He is more independent than we think. And especially Trump number two, this second administration, it's a good way to see it. We cannot underestimate it. This is the woman riding the beast. And we know it is because he is the person who's sitting on the Oval Office after the year of the Sunday Law. So I know I didn't go through all the proofs and the best ways to say, well, the woman has to be Trump, but if you bear with me and we just took our two definitions that are vague and make an application for the seventh kingdom, we're saying, well, the woman, Trump, the beast, the the Oval Office. The beast Oval Office is applied to both the sixth and the seventh, because we know these two kingdoms are the United States as a nation. Now, the only thing that changes is the ideology of the person who is writing it. Very simple terms. I know this, what I just said, doesn't fully explain, well, why wasn't it then 2016, right? Um, I will have to go to too much length to try to explain why during the sixth, even when Trump had its first term, is not yet the seventh kingdom. Prophetically. Now, not speaking prophetically, we know he wasn't still able to use it. I mean, the Oval Office in all the ways he wanted. He actually showed his true face, like totally, only until January the 6th at the end of his presidency. And then that's why we call that event and the year actually the agitation of the Sunday Law. We called it correctly for many years, even before 2021. And then 2021 proved to be very much that. And since he became this looming possibility of, potential dictator who is wanting to get to the office again, we enter into the perfect setting for now a very damaged Oval Office with too much power than ever before, the institution and the norms more broken than ever before. When this person comes back, this is going to be the time. And this is one of the ways that we understand that it has to be the 2024 election. Okay, so what we did so far is identify that Trump fits the definition of being the woman that wants to ride this nation. We have to, I have to accept that reality. I can see, okay, Satan has prepared his kingdom, his final kingdom. Who could have thought? It's simply Trump 2.0 riding the United States. That is the version of Satan of a seventh final kingdom. So then we need to think, okay, so what the Sunday Law is? Oh, it is the moment in time when this person takes control of the beast. That seems to be so. Sounds quite logical, quite fair. You could say, when was it? Was it the election? Was it before in the RNC? Was it when he takes the actual oath and begins the presidency? Any thoughts so far? Any questions before I just go to the next key point? Perfect. So if we only had, oh,
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I got a little bit of a quandary of a question here.
Uh-huh.
According to my understanding, when it comes to the sixth to the seventh kingdom, it's my understanding that is progressive. Am I correct? Or is it just blank spot right there and then?
It is progressive, it is messy, it has details,
So,
though on the surface, you cannot see it in Revelation 17. Okay.
so if it's progressive, and one of the things that gets things to that point is that we see that some of the progression started in 1989 when we see one of the first conquerings, like say that of the King of the South,
Mm-hmm.
and the next one would be the Glorious Land. So with this year seventh kingdom, so would we say that the seventh kingdom starts in 1979, or where
Um,
we see a small rise of it, or how would you perceive it?
so that's the moment when we need, like, when we get other stories, completely different parables to explain progressions. Like, for example, Tess has a very famous one. She would go to Acts 27 and she would say, well, this is the Sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia. Sorry if I'm, going to something completely different that we may have forgotten. But in the application that she made, this period between, was it, I don't remember the islands even, but between one island and the other, they were in the Sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, and I think it meant a nation made of every tribe, and the other one meant something else. And she did this. I hope you all remember. She made two waymarks, and then she said one falling and one going up. And she said from 2021 to the Sunday law. And she would say, well, this is externally, this is the end of the United States until shipwreck, and it is rising the second phase of the United States. So what is falling now, if we mix the symbols, this will get messy. But if we do, well, it is falling the lamb, it is rising the dragon. If I brought Revelation 13 to this parable. Um, So what I think, Henry, what you're saying is, yeah, I think there might be another story. I think there is. I just don't have it now on the top of my head to say, well, actually, this falling of the lamb could have simply begun in, I don't know, you said 1979 or 1989, I don't know.
Sorry, it should be 1989. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, both dates are very significant. So 1989, like you need to find a story to explain that. But never forgetting that, yeah, one is falling, the other one is rising, but we still need to find, and when do we consider one completely falling and the other one completely up? And that's what we are trying to do with Revelation 17. Like, we recognize that Revelation 17 doesn't have any of that story of progression, one reducing in power and the other going up. We know it is there because when we see Kingdom 1, Kingdom 2, Kingdom 3, and we have read history and we said, yeah, it doesn't happen just out of the blue. Something was progressively falling in order for this kingdom to fall. We know it is there, but that's not the story Revelation wants to tell us. The story that it wants to tell us, I think, it's it wants to tell us that the seventh is marked as arrival, as arriving or fully here when something about that bad woman comes back. And if we stay only to the symbol of, well, it is when the woman sits, you would say, okay, well, it is the moment when Trump takes control of the Oval Office. If you just stay there, uh, I think it is pretty easy to see that it is when he is, let's say, fully controlling the Oval Office, and that would mean January. That is the This is the point when we have to bring that actually Revelation 17 is not only speaking about one type of relationship. There's the relationship that she has with the beast, and is very useful, and we can take a lot of truth from it, but we can end up having an unbalanced idea about it, which is it seems like the woman, it's the only entity that has, I don't know, ideas, and she simply controls the beast, in this case, the office of the president, the way she likes it, and that's it. Human on top of an animal. Pretty unbalanced relationship. But actually, Revelation 17 doesn't begin with that. It begins with another symbol. The sitting upon the beast comes in verse 3 when it says, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet color beast." But if we go to 2, "with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication." That phrase is extremely important because it is telling us something that we students of prophecy should be at least fairly used to it, which is, yes, we have symbol 1 and we have symbol 2. In symbol 1, we say there is one person, there's another. Among the two, one of them has a crown because it's called king. It's in plural, but I'm just putting one person. And this king has fornication with the woman, with the whore. And we have to do the same thing that we did with the person, animal, go to the natural. And we know, well, fornication happens 2 ways. It is 2 people having consensual relationship. That's why the symbol is that this king wants something. That's why he goes to a whore. And the woman also wants something because she receives something in exchange of this extremely awful picture. So they're both receiving something from this relationship, and it is called fornication. So remember what we did here with the beast, and we said in the 6 it is not. It is the same as saying in the 6 the king, and I put the crown, is not committing fornication. So I won't put any woman. He's just there, not committing fornication. The same way there's no woman on top of the beast. That's during the 6th kingdom. And this is the moment when we say, oh, so there's 2 symbols, and they're very different, and they both want to tell different stories. One clear difference is, oh, it's not that she's controlling it. They both are in it together. It's like the tension. We do this so many times. We have to hold 2 different things that seem contradictory. But that's the symbols that we're being given. In one sense, it means, oh yes, she has control over it. She has influence. Doesn't mean that she's forcing it. Why I can say that? Because when I take the other symbol, they are both doing it together. They both receiving something in exchange. So we have fornication. How can I call this second one? I will call it writing. And that's the symbol that we talked about. We have the beast, and yeah, and the woman seated on top. Now we have to deal with this. Two symbols. We already decided in a very simple manner, if the seventh kingdom is the moment when the woman rides the beast again, that seems to be, well, it is when the woman controls the throne or the office. At least personally, it leads me to January, which is where I was during my studies. But I don't have only symbol 2. I need to deal with symbol 1. And symbol 1 has another story, which is called fornication. Before we go there, I think Maka wanted to say something. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so when we were talking about progression, my mind went directly to the 5 different dates. So starting from July 18, November, December, January, the 2 dates in January.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like the progression that we would be discussing right now. And uh, if I heard you correctly, you are saying that the point at which the woman is now controlling the beast, it would be the January, like towards the end of that progression,
Mm-hmm.
when it now has control and not necessarily the process. Well, I don't know, the process of gaining influence. Could you call it that? I don't know. Like, that's what those dates have always looked like, a progression
Yeah.
leading to a point where um, the woman is given full control over the beast.
Yeah. So I think in very political terms, the way we see the world is, yeah, there's a progression. It starts, low and then full power. And then we go to January. But that doesn't mean that that would be the same way that prophecy wants to tell us when does the relationship begin. Remember, both symbols are relationships. One is a relationship with an animal. When you control it, you use it for your own benefit, etc. But then when you go to fornication, you may still see the same. You will say, well, when these two sleep together, which is fornication, that is simply the same moment in time. When the woman sits on the beast is the equivalent of when the woman and the king sleep together. Now, here's where the Bible comes along and says, well, do you actually know that I consider, Jesus, fornication happening even before the physical activity? So I think we are aware that we've been talking about Matthew 5. Uh, Curtis and Harminder have talked about it in length. There is a Bible story, an actual words of Jesus that says there is a difference between when you commit fornication before the act and when you finally do it. And God says, and I actually consider it happening when you just thought about it. Um, I think Debbie made a question why it is the election cycle. That's a question, right? You want to say something about that, Debbie?
No, no, Pedro, sorry. I was just commenting in reference to Henry's original comment and question
Oh,
about
okay.
progression and Maka mentioning about progression. I mean, it is an election cycle. We use that term.
Okay.
Uh,
So because I have all of your attention, see where we are at this very moment. let's say that we unpacked Revelation 17. We really didn't, but we spoke about it. We decided that the seventh kingdom is the moment in time. The arrival of the seventh kingdom is the moment in time when this bad actor called the woman comes back. At some point, he wasn't riding the beast. He didn't have any monarch throne or presidency to ride or to drive or to control or to influence. That's why it was a good kingdom, the sixth. But when it comes back, sure enough, we are in the seventh kingdom. So when we get to that point, we find out that there's actually two kind of physical actions going on with the woman. One is she rides beast, very familiar with the symbol, but she actually also commits fornication with the kings, also a physical activity. So both of them are not no different in that sense that they're both physical. They're both highlighting different things. To me, the symbol number one in the board, it's saying that the relationship is actually one to one. They're both benefiting from it. And in the second one, it's showing that even when both are benefiting from it, the woman has the influence. Good. Now we have decided that the start of the relationship, either because she rides the beast or because she commits fornication with the king, when it first happened, that is the arrival of the seventh. I find it beautiful that between the two symbols, there is one where we have a real Bible story that tells us, did you actually know that actually fornication begins before? So that's the part that catches our attention. Wow, between the two symbols, there's one that actually happens before the physical, before sleeping together, before riding the beast. You don't have any Bible story that tells you when you think about riding the beast, you already ride it in your head, in your heart. That doesn't exist. It only applies to fornication. It is actually called adultery, but we know adultery is a type of fornication. That's why I'm calling it fornication. So, because fornication happens before, you have to decide which of the two symbols, one or two, is the one that's going to help me determine the moment when the seventh kingdom arrives, when the Sunday law happens. And because we only had three options, four or five, like July, November, and January, just by looking at the three and seeing, well, fornication seems to be like the early thing. Fornication seems to bring to me the very beginning of this. We go and say, oh, it has to be the earliest of the three. But not only that, there's a story behind choosing July over the other two. When we say when fornication is the moment when you committed fornication in your head. Um, that's when we need to remember parables are just that, representing things that may or may not be animate or inanimate. The woman, it's an animate symbol that happens to also be representing another animate application, which is Trump. But then the king being the beast, let me make it green. Not green, I had to make green the woman. Just so that we don't get confused. This is the woman, and then this is the king. So the king and the beast are representing the office of the president. And this is an inanimate thing. The institution with political power is inanimate. So I want to leave you all with the following. If this is the chair called the office, in other kingdoms, this was the throne. And this is the institution, the political institution with power that the woman wants to sit upon. But the symbol that we want to use, it's number one, king. So I'm going to put a king underneath. We have to personify it. Why? Because the Bible is personifying the throne. It's saying that it is a king. And on the other side, we have the symbol of the woman, and she's there. She wants to commit fornications with the chair. Doesn't make sense, but we know the chair is the office, but the symbol is a king. You commit fornication with another person. That's why it's called a king. But in real life, that office is not a person. How can it even commit fornication? Even symbolically, how does it even commit fornication symbolically? So let's stick to the natural. How the woman commits fornication and how the king commits fornication with the woman, according to the definition of Matthew 5, that it happens in the mind. Can someone give me like a very brief way that a fornication in the mind happens between two people, the woman and the king? How would that happen?
Well, there will be intention, but no actions. That
Intention, no action.
they think of one another.
What needs to happen for them to think about one another?
They need to meet, know each other, or
Exactly.
Attraction.
Like I would say they need to see each other, right? Anyone remembers the verse? Is it 31? Divorce, lost. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time. This is Matthew 5:27. Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whoever looketh on a woman. So I'm going to stop there. I just need the word look. When the fornication happens, according to the verse, when you look, it's not really saying that every person you look, you're committing fornication with. It's you look and then you think. You know what you're thinking. So I wanna extract that word look. For the adultery to happen, the look needs to happen. So there has to be a visual connection. I'm talking about the natural. And of course she looks back. And then you commit fornication. Perfect. Now let's move it to the chair, which is the office. Office they don't have eyes. How could the office see the woman? Anyone had an idea how the office of the president can see the woman? It's an inanimate thing, and we are personifying it because Revelation 17 tells us to do so, calling it king. How can we make sense of it when we know it is an office? It's an institution, actually, not even a chair.
I think that someone has to give her access to the office. Or
Great.
okay.
You wanna continue? Let's build that.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe as having like, I don't know if it's the right word, but gatekeepers, um, and opening the doors for her to view that office from far.
Great. What if I picture like this? Let's say that this office always has eyes, like it always does, and it's looking, uh, yeah, in this direction, whatever that direction is. It is always looking to there. Remember that we are picking up the word look. Whoever looketh on a woman. On a woman, it says to last after her. Okay, so let's say this office, it's always looking because it's inanimate. We cannot say that it decides to look at some point. So let's say it is always looking. Like, basically, I'm trying to say it will always commit fornication. Like, it will always, not fornication, it could be legitimate, lawful sex. It will always do.
But
So we
Pedro,
build, sorry?
just a question again, because as you shown before, the fornication happens between two people. So how do you reconcile the fornication happening with an inanimate object?
Exactly. So we are saying, so what I would say is the same symbol that I said, you remember when I said the king look at her, he commits fornication. Simple. Well, the throne is also, when it looks at her, it commits fornication. Like it happens automatically. The only thing is that this king, he can be looking at another side, towards a different direction, and he can make the, decision to say, no, I'm going to look this side because I want to lust after this woman. So we know humans, turn to one side to the other and they look, but the office cannot. So I'm saying the office will always be looking, like it is there standing. So there has to be something that blocks the that they encounter each other, because the office has no way to decide when to look or not. Then there has to be something that prevents it. And even if all of what I'm saying looks weird and strange, it starts to make sense when we know this is the office of the president. This is actually the most guarded institution of any country. You don't want just anybody to sit on the chair. You actually put a lot of barriers, obstacles that need to be, overcome in order for the right person to get there. That is exactly what we're supposed to do, even in our own lives when we fall in love. We have all different barriers. So we don't just go with the first person that we see, but whatever those barriers are, those processes, rules that we apply to ourselves, we have walls as well. And then we decide when we want to be with someone. But in this case, the office doesn't have that, doesn't have any will, cannot decide when to look or when not. It is just there. So there has to be things that protect it. And when we know that it is the office of the president, it makes sense. There are things that protect this office. Now, the woman is the human symbol here, and it is Trump, another animate thing. So, him as the woman, he knows where he wants to go. He always knows where he wants to go. So, the woman always wanted the office. You could say the woman is after the office since, whatever, since always. But she cannot even look at the office. She needs to remove whatever is protecting the office. And that's when we go to the word gatekeeper. That's when we go to the political parties. And that's when we go to the Democratic Convention or Republican Convention, which is the last thing that happens before an actual person gets in full contact with the office. Before the convention of either party, no person on earth is really flirting with the office of the president. It simply cannot happen because legally there's a process. And the final thing that makes you actually run for office is when you are nominated. So that's why we say the office is there, it is always looking, but there's something that prevents from this direct relationship to happen. The woman, Trump, he wants the office, but there's something that prevents it. There's one last thing that prevents it. Now, there's more things in the future that prevents him from sitting, which would be sleeping with the king, if we go to the symbol of fornication, or sitting upon the beast, the physical action. But because we decided that according to Matthew, we need to find when it happens in the mind, and we know that in the mind means that it has to look, you has to look at it. We need to decide when in the political process, we would call the election cycle, when in that process we could say they are facing each other. And Trump and the office could only face each other once he's nominated, before he's not even a candidate, legally. So that's when the barrier is removed. Barrier being when this party, who actually shouldn't have allowed him to be the candidate, when they finally let him be the candidate, then he now has a direct contact to the office and the office to him because you are a candidate. Um, for example, let's say Kamala Harris was the actual bad actor, like she wants to be a dictator. Well, then our Sunday law wouldn't have been July 18th. It would have been whenever August. I don't remember the date. In August, we would say the Sunday law happened. But because in between the two candidates or two parties who are supposed to protect the office, the bad woman was actually in the Republican side, then we forget about Democrats, their noise in this story. We focus on the Republicans. When they allow him to run, then the fornication, when you look, according to Matthew 5, and you lust after the woman, and the woman to the man as well, because fornication is both sides, then you say, okay, that is the moment when it happens. So I hope it makes sense why fornication is the suited and how can I say, it is the symbol that we need to use to say the earliest, the moment when it first, when the relationship happens first, when the woman enters in a relationship with the king, if or the beast, it's only fornication that gives us the earliest moment because we have the story of Matthew 5. And just to finalize, I wanted to say quick thoughts about QFMG, which is how Terry first got to the date. And we know these are three symbols. Q, what does Q provides?
Fifth.
Fifth, but let's jump right into what it provides. It provides July, right? It
Yes,
provides a
yes,
month.
true.
Then Fabius, what does it provide?
The vote.
Election cycle, the voting.
Yes, I would say it provides the theme, which agrees with Revelation, which is rise and fall of nations. Fabius is going to tell us, is going to give us those first clues. Oh, this is no longer kingdoms that rise and fall through conquest. This is a rise and fall of kingdoms that happens through their systems, legal systems of, transition of power. We call election cycle. So that's why we can, in very simplified terms, we say, oh, election. That's what it means. And then when we go to to MG, They go together, maximum gurges. That word gurges, we often call it flood. We often call it, I don't know, other things. But I don't know if you have ever Googled about it and why this person was called Gurgis. It is said about him and the character,
Indulgence.
yeah, indulgence, that he was unrestrained. Part of what the word Gurgis means and why it means flood is because they were barriers that were holding water and they break. And when they break, there's a flood. Like whatever was holding that, it broke. And that's when I would say that the best connotation of Gurgis fits in there. It is an unrestrained thing that by itself means it was restrained, but then no more. So the flood is the moment when this wall, whatever was restraining, it fails. It gets unrestrained. So we can break the wall, and when there's no more restraint, restraint from what? Restraint from this person who is here. This is the bad woman. That party should have never allowed this person to be a candidate, but they did. So they were no longer a good wall. It got destroyed, and this happened. Trump looked at the chair because there's no more wall. The office will look at anyone who becomes the nominee. Two people. Fornication begins. Of course, this is all symbology. It's not really fornication. It's just simply that he became the nominee. Uh, it seems like too many different steps, but I think this is a very accurate, faithful way to look at what Revelation 17 is trying to say. And I'm not even talking about a good woman. That is a fascinating topic. Uh, the the reason why adultery makes sense is because actually Jesus was not even calling it adultery, was calling it fornication. Sorry, wasn't calling it fornication, was calling it adultery. Adultery is a form of fornication. But when we arrive to the point of adultery, then more things come into play that I won't talk about because our time is out. But it, of course, brings complexities and light, explains things about why the six was good, the principles by which the United States government was founded. So it is a fascinating topic that I'm also learning and trying to understand. So my quick summary is that we talked about three places in the Bible where we know there's the Sunday law, each of them giving us clues and ideas. They all say that it is actually a point in time, one an invasion, a conquest of one kingdom to another. But the other one is basically the character of the nation changes from lamb to dragon. And then Revelation 17 comes along and it has so many elements. And then we see that there's a woman riding the beast, but there's also a woman committing fornication with the king. And when this relationship stopped, we were in a good phase, in a good sixth kingdom, but she will come back. And it was fornication of the two symbols, the one that gives us the first moment, the first contact. And for a contact, eye contact to happen between the office and the woman, some barrier had to be removed because that office is protected. And that happened in July 18th. And that aligns with QFMG, which is July election and Gurges, this flood that happened when the wall broke down. Um, so quick summary there. Uh, that's all I have to say for today, and it was a pleasure. I don't know if there's final questions or comments, please feel free to comment.
I have my
Okay.
question from the beginning, but I'll leave it
Oh,
there
oh,
for
yeah.
now.
Yeah, which one was it?
The fact that now when we speak about fornication or adultery, we are looking at the action and not at the
Oh,
thought.
yeah.
But
So
it's another thing. It's another for another time,
it's
maybe.
it's good, but I mean, I could briefly at least tell you my thoughts very quickly. Um, what was said during the Brazilian ICM, what was being suggested, I mean, with you, like trying to understand it, is that God treats individuals, apparently, you or me, uh, like he would decide, God would decide whether we're saved based on our actions, on our thoughts, and there was made the suggestion that it had to be our actions and not our thoughts. But then there's the person, individual, and there's the person, the institution, which is the movement. And the person, the institution, here is a symbol because institution is not a person. The person, the institution, God does care about the thoughts of the institution. So whether God really cares, or takes into account our thoughts. Now talking about individual only, I think God really cares about our thoughts completely, even though God is not going to judge us based on that. That was what was suggested. We're not talking about it. God still wants our thoughts to be good, just even for our own benefit. So thoughts are important. But then when we talk in an institutional level, it was suggested that the thoughts of the movement, whatever that is, that would be a nice study to have one day, whoever will explain it. The thoughts of the movement, God does expect to be pure, whatever that they are. Now, these two things that seems to be in conflict, the individual and the institution, when we go to the symbol, it's still the thought, it's something that is negative and is bad, and it's being told us as being defining of a sin. Jesus did that. So we need to decide, Katya, whether when Jesus is speaking about if we look and lust after the woman or whatever that is that we're lusting after, was Jesus speaking about us as individuals, or was actually Jesus speaking to us as an institution? And if it was the institution, then this verse is actually meant for the institution, that it cannot commit fornication in the mind, whatever that means. I don't really know. So for the symbology of Revelation 17, yeah, adultery continues being bad. Even though we have another story here, individuals, God is not going to judge us by our thoughts, apparently. We'll see how that goes. But completely off topic of the Sunday law. But I just wanted to give you my thought because I didn't want to leave you without any answer.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. I think that the fact that you reminded me and us that we have to look at Matthew 5 as a Jesus talking to the church, to the institution, and not as the individual. It makes more sense because I think I was forgetting that part, or and it's so easy to bring back everything to the individual level. So yeah, makes more sense for me. Thank you so much.
Oh, we have to receive more light about it. So let's see where we'll get. I'm excited. Okay, shall we pray? I'll close with a word of prayer. Thank you, God, again, for everything that we have experienced as movement at this stage of the Earth history. We are so grateful that we have the hope of a new home in the future, the hope of a beautiful salvation, but also the hope that on this earth, we know we're not alone. We know we walk together, one another, and also with you. Help us then to remain hopeful, to remain active, to the best of our abilities in the different stages that we're all in. I ask you that we may continue um, fighting the good fight. I ask you all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.